what is the cost of living for, buying houses, renting houses around in the Murfreesboro area? Like kind of like what's like the range, I guess you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, so if you go to apartments and then if you go to houses, those are two separate things. So apartment, most recently, 2 beds, 1 bath, considered a fair price was right around 1,200 a month, obviously. And again, that can range. I know people who are paying 1,800, but then there might be a nicer place, or it might be even within Murfreesboro, right? There's downtown and then there's the outside, right? Any city has that. So it would range. I would say you're not going to see much below 1,000 anymore. I think those days are gone unless you're just very, very fortunate. And I would say you're going to see a lot more towards the 16, 1,800 type of range going forward for rentals. Obviously, if you start renting houses, there's usually additional, right? You're renting a house, you're not small apartment. So some of the houses you might start seeing 2,000, but livable wages, people have to be able to afford these, or else if people can't afford them, nobody's there to rent them. So it's definitely nothing like what you would see in New York or even LA or stuff like that, but it is getting up there for sure. And I think that's kind of the power of homeownership, is that you're going to spend the money anyway. If you can, might as well have that money count for something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. To eventually acquire your own place.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. For the lot sizes for like houses, like what does that look like in the area?
Like what you would expect in most places, usually under a quarter of an acre in the subdivisions. But then you're buying houses that aren't typically in newer subdivisions. You might get half an acre, an acre. I mean, I know someone who has 6 acres and they're in Murfreesboro and they have 6 acres. So you're never going to see that in LA.
Yeah.
You just won't. I mean, even if someone had it, so much time has passed that eventually they got bought out or
Subdivided them.
subdivided.
Yeah.
So right now we still have families that own some of these homes and haven't given up. Like I live in a subdivision, we're like less than a quarter acre, right? But when we go out like a quarter of a mile away from me, there's all these quarter acre houses. And then there's this one house that is on like an acre and a half. So that's clearly, I'm sure the builder tried to buy them out or get them to subdivide, but they wanted their land. They didn't sell it. So you can find gems like that inside Murfreesboro still, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. From when you first moved to now, 7 years later, have you noticed an increase in population?
Absolutely. Depending on what chart, because everybody's charts are different, but
yeah.
Absolutely, Tennessee and especially Nashville is one of the most popular places to move to. It has some of the highest migration rates from New York, Chicago, but even Indiana. There's a lot more jobs here. We've got a lot of headquarters from other states that have been moved here. There's a lot happening in Tennessee.
The weather is obviously completely different from LA to Nashville. Tell us, give us the tea.
How's the weather? It's almost funny because it's like super dry in California. And then it's like, I swear it's like the more you keep going this way, it just gets more humid until you hit Florida. And so Tennessee is not nearly as bad with humidity as Florida, but it absolutely gets humid here. Definitely no dry heat here for the most part. Random storms, rain, not too much hail. We really don't get hail that often, just a lot of rain, plenty of flooding, good and bad flooding. Good flooding, just that doesn't cause any problems and fills streams, and then other flooding where you hope you're in the right place.
Okay. What about tornadoes and stuff like that?
We absolutely get tornadoes. They're more predominant on West Tennessee. More often than not, you see them in West Tennessee, where that's most of the damage, the tornado country, if you will. You will get a couple that come through Middle Tennessee and occasionally East Tennessee, but mostly it's West Tennessee. But with that being said, Murfreesboro, I think it was like 10 years ago, had a tornado that came right down the city. A couple years ago, Nashville got hit. So we're definitely not immune, just like earthquakes in California. Most people are fine. Most people will never be severely impacted by an earthquake. And yet there are those who are the unlucky ones that end up with the tough situation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the rundown of it.
Got it. What are some things that you maybe don't like about the area? Or I should say, maybe
You
you
can say
wish,
don't like. No,
yeah,
you can say don't like. Like
don't like,
people,
yeah, don't like or wish that you can
I
change.
know. And it's like everybody's always worried. Like that's why I didn't shy away from saying there's tornadoes. Man, there's
Mhm.
tornadoes. I'm not going to lie to you. There's tornadoes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like every state has some sort of natural hazard or issue or problem. And if they don't, then they have their own issues that other states might not have. So I'm not someone who's going to try and pretend that like everything's perfect all the time. No. So some things about Murfreesboro. Now this goes with all governments because all governments are too slow and too reactive instead of proactive. So traffic's not great, man, and it's only going to get worse. That's just the truth.
Hmm.
I doubt the government will do anything to fix it because they didn't in LA. They didn't in every other booming town.
It's like on the
Nobody's
back.
really ever fixed it.
It's always on the back burner. Like we'll fix it later.
Yeah, and
Um,
so it does suck. But I also like it is something that's annoying here. But at the same time, I'm like where are you gonna go where it's not? And you'd have to go live out in some rural town, which you can here in Tennessee. But chances are you're gonna want the amenities of the city. So part of me is like, is it even fair to call that as a con when it's a problem everywhere? I don't know, but I also don't want to be that guy because if you go into a Facebook group right now from Murfreesboro, people are going to complain about traffic. Now, honestly, I think that's nearsighted because I think that's just a little silly. Because if they move into any other town that has a similar population, they're going to run into the same problem. Now, something that's unique to Murfreesboro that definitely I would say people aren't a fan of is we have a very sizable dump here. Huge. It's a very big dump. It generates revenue. Don't quote me on that because I am not a politician, but I'm pretty sure it generates revenue for the city. But it's a double-edged sword because it's this giant eyesore. Now, most of Murfreesboro won't see it. And I didn't even say the dump. I wanted to first not push them because if you say something negative, people will immediately latch onto that. So I didn't want to steer the conversation. I said, what are some things you love and some things you hate about this community? Most people did not say the dump right away. Most people said normal things that everybody says in their neighborhood. Oh, well, some of the neighbors' kids are loud or, like stuff like that. Then most of the people who said a dump, I made sure to follow up with this question. I said, okay, that's really helpful. Knowing what you know about the dump right now, would you still bought the home that you're in? Every single one of them said, yes, we love it here. We love this community. We love this city. I'm not kidding. Every single one, right? Like my clients would have bought somewhere else. So I wasn't desperate. I didn't need them to buy a home here. I would have found them another one. Like that's not an issue. That's my job, right? So it doesn't bother me. So I just wanted to have an honest answer because I didn't want to ever risk misleading my clients into me trying to push them to buy a home so I can close a deal versus them having to live with something they're not happy with. And to be clear, like even when I ask people, they're like, well, if we do smell something, it's usually like at 10 o'clock at night or like 5 a.m. in the morning. So I'm like, okay, well, 90% of people aren't going to be outside at those times. And it's not like you smell anything inside. And so the reason why I'm spending time on this is it is a unique thing about Murfreesboro, but literally the people here, even the ones who complain, are still here. And when I've talked to them personally and asked them on behalf of clients to get honest feedback, every single one of them said, I would still choose to live where I live. I would still choose to do what I do. And here's a good thing too, for people to know who's listening and like, oh, that's weird. We are actively, our government but also the citizens here of the city are actively working on solutions to improve this and to do more. It is a consistent and constant thing. So that means it's like, it's not being swept under the rug. And that's a good sign. Every city has problems. Some cities, the citizens don't do anything about it, but complain on Facebook and the government just sweeps it under the rug. That's not happening here. It is out there. People know, and we're trying to do something about it. And I would rather be around people like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Being proactive about it. That's good. I love that question that you asked. The follow up is like, would you still buy this house again? Yeah. So you said you went door knocking. How is that? Are people like, do they open the door? I mean, because I've been door knocking in parts of LA, and people don't open their door, or they'll pretend like they're not home.
I wouldn't open my door in LA. Heck no. Freaking LA, man. That's a whole different ball game. Yeah, I would say in Murfreesboro, most people, unless they're from California or New York or Chicago, probably would open their door and talk to you. I mean, it's door knocking. It's intrusive. I don't care what anybody says. It's intrusive. I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but I had no other way to get an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, shoot, there's not even really phone books anymore that I can just go grab. And so like, that's what I felt I needed to do for my clients. And I did. And everybody was very nice and receptive. Cautious.
Sure.
But nice. I would say the two types of people who might be unfriendly, people who bring their big city mindsets from states, and I'm not even judging them. Listen, it's a different, more cutthroat life in LA. I'm not saying people are worse or anything like that. Who can judge that? But you have to fight in LA. You have to fight to get into the lane you want to get into. You have to fight to get to your gas station. It's a fight. I lived there for a long time. So I know. It's a fight in New York. It's a fight in Chicago. They bring that here, but they don't need to. So the threats, if you will, that they had, or the competition they had, it's not the same. And so I think that's a big one. And then the second type of people is people who don't like change. The people who go, we have too many people here in Murfreesboro or in Tennessee. And I go, really? How'd you get here? And I bet the people who were here before you looked at you and said, we have too many people here. And to be honest, I don't like that mindset. I've seen it everywhere. Ask anybody in LA if we have too many people in LA.
All right, and if you like this video, go ahead and click the next one, and it is the full-length video for the entire podcast about Murfreesboro, Tennessee.